All right, people can hear now. So sorry. Started it, thought everyone could hear, didn't work. Okay, so we're going to start back at the beginning. So this is our fundraising manager basic training. And today we're going to focus in on all the pieces of fundraising manager setup and configuration to get your team up and running on fundraising manager quickly and efficiently. So I am going to use the question functionality as well as the chat functionality, so you can kind of throw whatever you'd like out there. I am happy to pull people off of mute if they would have something more in-depth question they'd like to ask. Just kind of chat that to me or add it as a question, and we can make sure to do that as well. My name is Tasha. I'm part of the CloudStack team, and so often I'm providing trainings, but I also am sometimes the first point of contact when people are first talking to our team, and I work also in sales and marketing. So fundraising manager basic training. Today, I'm going to touch on a few different pieces. We are going to talk online donation forms and make sure that you're all configured and set up and ready to go with your donation forms, and explain how to get them on your website and any other pieces of customization that are possible. We are going to talk email acknowledgements, and this can be a bit of a tricky piece sometimes with fundraising manager. So we're going to go quite in depth and talk about those changes. And if you were a fundraising manager 1 user, this is substantially different than our previous product. So we're going to go in depth on email acknowledgements. We're going to talk about Salesforce campaigns and how to relate them back into fundraising manager. We will talk CRA receipting and all of the different pieces that are critical for CRA replacement receipts and consolidated receipting. And then we are also going to talk about the staff donation portal and what's possible there. As well, within this document that I'm going to follow up through with everybody afterwards, there's tons of great links here to all the different subcategories and conversation pieces we're going to talk about today, so that if you need further support, lots of great links showing you how to use them afterwards, and just some extra support pieces down here. So this will come around to everybody after the training. All right, so we are going to start today with right straight out of the box, fundraising manager, home screen. You can see here that I've done a little bit of configuration with a fundraising manager dashboard with some very particular KPIs. Our team kind of went, what's best practices? What are the pieces we want to be able to track, or what do most nonprofits want to be able to track? So that is a different training session. I'm actually going to organize a dashboard training session. And we are finding there are a couple different layouts that some clients have ended up with as their default. If for some reason something is on my screen and it's not apparent on your screen and you can't find it, please make sure to throw it in as one of the questions, and at least then that lets me know what I need to follow up with our team on. It's likely just a very small hidden field in Salesforce, and we just need to expose it for you. So I will definitely go into more depth with folks that are interested in dashboards, but I've just changed up my home screen so it might look a little bit different than yours. And the first place we're going to start today is going to be looking at that online donation form configuration. So across our navigation bar at the top here, or maybe as part of your more here, we're going to go right into form configurations. So I'm going to make sure I can see all in my list view. I'll explain why that's important in a second. So out of the box, clients should be given a basic default donation form. And the default donation form is critical to know, and you can see here, this is the only check-marked box. This default donation form and this checked box indicates which form you're going to find on your home page right here. Sorry, I'm just open up this screen as well so we can kind of toggle back and forth as needed. So on your fundraising manager home screen, the donation manager box here is always going to relate to this default choice. So It's a really little piece of information, but it can be pretty critical when you're trying to figure out why the form on your website maybe doesn't look the same as what you anticipated. It could be that it's showing the default donation form. So everyone should start out with a default donation form that is provided by our team. And the first thing you're going to do when you come in here, so many of these settings, they could be critical, they could be pieces that you want to change up because maybe you want every available campaign here on your internal donation form. Maybe you don't, it's up to you. But we're going to start off fresh. And the best way to start off fresh, maybe this is my internal donation form. I can rename this at any time if I'd like with the edit button. But in this case, I'm going to actually clone this form. And I'm going to clone the form. So this is how we can make a brand new form with all the same configurations as that default for now. You can see it's called default donation form copy. And what I'm going to do is edit this, and I'm going to call it website form. For now, we're going to save it like that, and we'll go through some of the extra pieces in a second. So this is going to be my website form. While I'm working on my website form, just so I can see how it looks and look at the configurations while we're doing this in real time, I'm going to hit my form publishing button in the top right here. And this shows me all the different ways that I can navigate to this particular form. So by clicking on this link, it takes me to a standalone page of this donation form. This is really helpful when you're working on configuring this donation form with different colors and different looks. We're going to be able to at least see the changes in real time if we have this open. If you don't want a standalone page and instead you would like to work within your website, so you want to actually put your donation form into a location on your website, you're going to work with this iframe here. So it's just a copy and paste. I do it in less than a minute on my WordPress website. Very simple, but if there's questions or concerns on how to make this work on your website, you're welcome to get in touch with us. We also now have a QR code that can be scanned. This can be printed, and at any time from any location, especially if you're doing maybe still direct mail campaigns, if someone scans this QR code, it will take them to this page and this donation form. So all these QR codes are unique to each donation form. So now that I have this example form opened, now it's the fun time to do some form configuration. So I've renamed my form, which is first and most important. I have multiple options for an ask ladder. So a standard ask ladder is the default, and this is what we've chosen, where we have one-time and monthly donations. At any time, I can decide for an ask ladder fixed frequency, and I'm going to show you how that choice is made within Salesforce as well. But now that I've put it to a fixed frequency and refresh, and this is where having that other form open, just the viewing form open, is useful. Now, when I take a look at that donation form, I'm going to find that the option for one-time or monthly has been removed. This form is now hard-coded, I believe, in this case to one-time, but I'll show you how we can figure out which one that is. So now, if anybody lands on this form, they scan your QR code, they're here. These are only one-time donations, so we're not lining them up for a monthly donation. In terms of fundraising strategy, obviously, we have been working with nonprofit teams. Maybe you have a list of all your one-time donors and you're really hoping to actually increase them to monthly donors. And you have a great targeted email campaign to all your one-time donors. The fun thing that you can do here is send them to a donation form that is only for monthly donations because you're really trying to move them up that ask ladder. Or maybe you want to, within Salesforce, create a report of everybody who gave less than a $25 donation, and you're now going to send them to a one-time donation form that has slightly larger amounts only. So that's something that can be done. The last option here is a single amount donation form. So we don't see this used all that often, but we had many requests for this to be possible. So now with a single amount, you're not even going to see the amount on this page. So the place that we're seeing this most frequently used is when there's a very strategic campaign, surrounding you're looking for a bunch of $100 donors. So, I mean, we have a couple clients who use this, and I can send along an example of one of our clients who actually has decided to do something different and put it into this direction. So that's single amounts. I'm gonna just flip this back over to a standard ask ladder. We can change up our tax jurisdiction for clients who are in the US versus Canada. And some clients actually run two different donation forms, one for US and one for Canada. So that happens as well. By default, your donation form is going to acknowledge and receipt now, because we're assuming these are all online donations. But you can also make a decision as a team. Maybe you don't want to have anything happen when those donations come in because you want to review each of them. So we have a few different, the default, if you choose none, is for acknowledge receipt now, but that's an option. If you would like your donor country visible because you get donations from many different locations, as soon as you turn that on, it's going to add a different field. So I'll just show you. So instead, now when I go back here, we're going to see this flip back to a standard ask ladder now that I've switched it back over. And now there's going to be an extra field here for country. So that's just one of the newer features that we put into place for our international nonprofit organizations. Additional donation options that you're going to see on page 2 of the form for making a gift in honor or memory of, newsletter lists, whether you want donations to be anonymous, and group donations, as well as language preference, which right now we have a standard English and French, but we can actually expand this to other languages should that be required. These are also pick lists. So at any time, if you decide, I don't really want a page 2, this is a really targeted donation form with a very specific plan, and I'm really looking for something in particular. I know all my donors are English, totally up to you. If you save it so that none of these are available, now when I refresh this donation form, we are going to see that there's no page 2. Oh, screen in the first section. Okay. I don't see the checkbox. Sorry, I'm just reading through. Okay. Thanks, JJ. I am going to throw that out to the team. So I don't know why that would not be there. Okay. Maybe you can take a screenshot of that for me, JJ, if you don't mind, and I can follow up with the team about that as well. So additional donation options. So if you check off all of those, we're down to only 2 screens instead. Some clients have multiple Stripe payment processor accounts, particularly for US and Canadian. So that sometimes happens where you have 2 Stripe accounts running. That's where we would choose the payment processor. If you want your donors to be able to cover the processing fee, some nonprofit clients really don't feel comfortable with that, so they may remove this button. That button is controlled from here. Another security feature that we've built into the product is called the minimum donation form amount. And we use this entirely, has been put into place mostly for credit card phishing. So we found that nonprofits tend to be hit by people who are using stolen credit cards. They will often hit a nonprofit with hundreds of $1 donations testing out credit cards. By increasing this minimum donation amount, even to $5, it seems to stop that behavior. Totally at your discretion, whether you would actually like to do this or not, but it is a feature we have in place. And of course, the fun part here is for look and feel. Maybe you're looking for what your particular colors are and what you would like to do with the theme colors. So I'm just going to see if I can find a red color code. So I'm going to just take this just to see. Sorry, my internet's of course pokey. Try this and just see what it does to the look of our donation form. So I'm going to switch this over because this was our Cloud Stack Blue, And now when I save it and I refresh the donation form, we should have some different colors in place. So we have a pretty great article, on how to work through. We can see now all of those highlighted colors are in that red that was chosen, and it's going to follow through in a bunch of different places on the form. So that's what we're going to do with the primary theme color. You have a secondary color and an action color in this case. Maybe you also want to put a background URL image in place, and I can show an example of that in a minute in another form that I've created. I'll just grab that out. The donation success URL. When someone completes our test donation form, in this case, it sends people back to the contact us page, but this is at your discretion. Where would you like your donors to head after the fact? Maybe you have an event you're really hoping they would also attend, so you are going to send them to that page. It's really up to you what you would like to do with that. So we're going to move in now to donation amounts. And this actually relates very strongly back to the discussion I was having about the ask ladder. So we can see here by default, that ask ladder went to a one-time donation amount because this default value here was chosen. So not only does this relate to whether it's it moves back to that fixed frequency of either one time or monthly, but this was also the amount that was chosen for a single amount. So this box is pretty important and critical, and this is also what is driving when I'm on this page. This red is very bright. I should have chosen something else. We can see that this page automatically defaults to a one-time $25, but I'm going to actually change that up quick and take the default off of this. And instead, I'm going to decide to do a $50 monthly is my goal. And now when I refresh my form, we will see that it's going to go over to a monthly $50. So those ask ladders can be really fantastic and really, really useful if you're driving people to very specific goals and you have hopes that you're planning on with your donation campaigns, maybe year-end giving. Your goal is to get a bunch of $100 monthly donors. It has been found that if this is the default that a nonprofit provides, it does seem to direct donors towards what you're looking for. So that is just a little bit of a play in the background. All of these amounts are totally configurable. Sorry, my computer's doing a funny little dance here. Totally configurable. You can put your descriptions in how you would like. Sorry, what is going on here? Okay, I'm gonna flip back out and hope if I go back in, nope, it's doing something funny. Okay, so donation amounts, you can change these up as you'd like. You can add descriptions as you'd like. And so we can see on our form here, this one has a description, but this one doesn't. So you can throw in a little bit of just commentary for your donors. Campaigns added to the form. So at the moment, I have 3 campaigns added to this form, but at any time, I can also decide to add a new one in. So I have my list of campaigns that are already available. I have breakfast with the bank because we were playing around with another client the other day and potential campaigns. And maybe I want that to be the default option. Maybe this is my general donation form, but I'm actually really hoping this is where the money's going to be directed. Maybe I also want to create a custom name for this, and instead I'm going to call it bank breakfast just for argument's sake, and we're going to save it. And now when I go back to my form configuration, I'm going to have this additional option available for me for clients to pick out. And because there's the bank breakfast, I don't know why it didn't default to that, but anyways, I think I have to select off my other default. You can see that now that's an option. At any time, oh yes, it's because I have 2 defaults in place here. At any time, I can also decide this particular donation form, it's going to be on a very special web page. I don't actually want my clients or my donors headed to give their money anywhere else right now but the bank breakfast. And so now that I'm down to only 1 campaign, when I take a look at this donation form, there just won't be anywhere for your donors to direct their funds to other than the one place that you've chosen for them. So it's just going to be a very simple form without that extra option. So we're going to, there will be no form submissions in this case because I haven't actually used this form, it's brand new. Email templates are something we're going to touch on in just a minute, and just how email templates work. And last but not least, there's form elements. So form elements were made at the request of some of our clients because they really wanted to be able to say things their way. Common example is method of payment check, US spelling, or check, Canadian spelling. So for some people that makes it's a really big deal. We have one of the most common ones that we have clients often asking about, and this was really why it was made initially, was that, let me see, don't know if I have it in here or not. So any form element is possible. So you can go, instead of next, going to find it in my form configure next button, and I'm going to just recall it, let's move on, or we'll do something fun. You are amazing. So now when I save that, new label for our next button, it's going to have changed. So this is something for many groups, they don't change any of this up at all, but what's your tone with your donors? How do you communicate with your donors? As a team, we understand how important that is. So this is part of just what's possible to do those small tweaks that really overall can make a big difference just in how you can communicate with donors. So you can change up to say, make this donation on behalf of an individual, maybe you want to call it an amazing donor or an amazing company, who knows what you want to say. Anyways, all of those are configurable. You can see I made a bunch of changes already here. So those are the form configurations elements. So we can change up a bunch of those elements. And the one other piece, I was just going to show was an example in the background with an actual background image. So when I take a look at this one, because this was a form I made up a while ago, if you were to choose a standalone page option, sorry, very pokey computer today. Let's see. So we can see that this is just an image that I built in Canva, and then I actually uploaded it to my website in order to give it a URL, but you maybe actually are able to pull from a Canva URL as well, just to kind of give a bit of a different look and feel to this form. It's going to respond as well. Oh, in this case, it should respond. Actually, I should, if anybody has their phone on them, it might be worth just scanning this QR code so you can get an idea of what it looks like when it's on a phone, because it just kind of moves around the size and settings as well. And when it's in the iframe, obviously, maybe you don't need a background image. You likely don't. If you're working off your own website, you probably have some of your own work in the background instead. But that was just an example that I put in the background. Okay, so is there any questions regarding some of this form configuration piece before I move on to the email templates? Turn a few of these back on. Okay, I'm gonna assume everybody's okay. Just gonna put these back on for the next person who uses the system. All right, so with your website forms, we have a, oh, you found the checkboxes. Okay, amazing. Are there recommended images? There's not recommended dimensions for the background image. I think it's more, it's going to adjust based on the size of the web page. So if you did get a chance to scan that QR code, and I'm going to do it again just on my own phone, because as far as I remember, when I did this recently, it should adjust the background image after the fact to be the appropriate size. So you can see now the fun run. If you get a chance to scan this, it moved to the top of the screen because the priority is always going to be for that donation form to be front and center. But I can make sure, Mia, I will ask about recommended size because there may be. I have not had that asked. And you know what? I will send around my fun run image that I had created just so that you can see what size was used. And I think I have another example demo web form that I can send just so you can see another example. Okay. All right, so we're going to move on to a discussion of email templates. And this can be one of the trickier items. So if there's questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. So by default, when we made this cloned form that came from the default donation form, if everybody remembers right back at the beginning, the default donation form, when we worked off of that initially, we had, these were all standard. So these all came in place with that donation form that you initially had that default. So one time French and English, recurring French and English, you have an in memory and an in honor consolidated. We recommend any changes that you initially decide to do happens in that default donation form. So those are going to be your standard templates, the templates that you've decided you want to look a certain way. So let's open up our one-time English just so we can get a look at that template and what it looks like. Okay, so we can't see much here other than we can see that it's tied to this particular form. So this will be important in a second. It is CRA eligible for a receipt. I mean, every once in a while, we do have some specialized custom forms that people want to use for an event instead, potentially, and they're just kind of piggybacking off a fundraising manager for that, but no one's actually CRA eligible for a receipt, so that can be a big part of it. So there's all these pieces. You can actually tie a form template directly to an allocation. But in this case, the Salesforce email template ID is being directly pulled still from the default donation form. And that's going to be really, really critical in a second. So I'm going to go into this one-time email English. I'm going to go and take a look at the template editor. Because when we cloned that initial default donation form, it pulled with it all of these email templates at the same time. So they're the exact same ones that are going to go out. They're the defaults that you initially chose. So maybe your group speaks about, you have a huge byline on every single donation, no matter what, that goes through the general donation form. You talk about your organization, or you have a blurb about your organization. But what if you're doing a really custom planned email because you have a campaign that's all about breakfast with the bank, and so you want to create an email template that is very different and it goes with breakfast with the bank. So here's the fun tricky part. So we're in here. If this is fine, I'm happy to change up my default email template, and I'm okay with that. And this is going to change up the default. It's as simple as just you can make all the changes. You can decide what your subject is. You can pull in merge fields. Salesforce has a ridiculous amount of merge fields that can come off of your contacts information and put in organizational information and information from the opportunity. So if you need help setting those things up, it's unique to your organization, or you want someone to check over your shoulder, make sure it's okay, we're happy to help with that. But this is just our one-time acknowledgement email. So we've got a description and everything here. Instead, because maybe I have something special I'd like to do for my one-time email acknowledgements that go out to breakfast with the bank, I'm going to do that same piece I did before, where I'm going to clone it, and I'm going to call it breakfast with the bank. And that's the name. Maybe I want to also change the description name here, right? So I've changed this up. It's cloned. It's taking the exact same information over from the message content, but on this one, I'm also going to go breakfast with the bank is amazing. I'm using that word a bit too much today, but anyways, you can understand kind of what's happening here. So I've cloned this email template. I'm going to save it. All right, so this is a brand new email template, but now I actually need to take it backwards and relate it to that initial template that we were talking about. Sorry. My email, I don't seem to have one of the fields on mine. So fun. Okay, so I think what I can do is do it this way. So, sorry, I seem to be missing a field on my demo org. So what we're going to do, this is a brand new email template. It's very specific to Breakfast with the Bank, which we were showing on that website form. I'm going to go up here into my URL. I'm going to steal this little blurb here between email template and view. And this is something I'm going to follow up with everybody about, because this is without a doubt the thing that tends to be the most confusing for people. But I'm going to go and I'm going to take this Salesforce specific record that you can see. This is very, very specific. I'm going to steal these words. And now I'm going to go back and we're going to see that between this one ends in TEAS, this one ends in QEAY. So this is what's still the one-time email template that's associated with the website form is still slightly different. I'm going to take that, I'm going to plop in my new one that I just created and click save. And what's important about that is that now this Salesforce email template ID relates back to that Breakfast with the Bank. So whenever somebody goes through this website form and has a one-time donation, it's just for argument's sake. I wonder if I can do this quick just so everyone can see, because this tends to be the most complicated piece of form config or email template configuration. I'm going to just do a really, I wonder if I have time to do a really quick one. I'm going to do a one-time $25. All right, so just so we can get a look and you can see how it's going to have changed up. Okay. All right, so I'm going to donate now and we're going to get just that. Make sure I did it right, to be honest. This will be this is a good practice. I haven't done this in a little while. So we're going to put that donation through my very slow computer. But what you're going to essentially do with all of your emails, now that we've made this is our website form and maybe we want it to say something different, or maybe this is a very unique form for only Breakfast with the Bank. So we want very specific templates for everyone who attends Breakfast with the Bank. Everyone's going to have a very specific email, because even if it's a consolidated email, we really want to have mention of our initial work with Breakfast with the Bank. So you may want to go through and make a change to all of the emails that are associated with Breakfast with the Bank, because we have a plan. So you would need to go through and do that on each form. I would say in general, most of our clients are sticking with a general thank you email, but I know more and more fundraising strategy really dictates that we, as fundraisers, as nonprofits, that little piece of customization can really make a difference in communication and in how to thank your donors. So it is a piece that you can make sure to go through and do those change ups. It's just that little extra tricky piece. So we can see now this is just my CloudStack Gmail. Breakfast with the Bank is amazing. So you put in your little customizations, those little extra pieces, because maybe you're hoping this is a yearly event and you're hoping they're going to come back again and you want to make a big deal about how amazing their donation was for Breakfast with the Bank. So I'm going to make sure to send up a great follow-up about how to do that. And once you've been working in Salesforce for a little while, it does become a little more inherent on how to make those changes. But we just recommend that, because we don't want to mess around with those default email templates, this is how you can go about making sure that each unique website form has a different email template if that's a choice your team would like to make. All right, so I'm going to very quickly touch on receipting because it's kind of perfect because we just had that one-time donation come through that I just did. So here's my donation that just went through. We can actually see that it was already closed one and a receipt was sent, but maybe we hear back from Tasha and for some reason she didn't get her receipt. So from this opportunity, where we have all the information needed here, we can navigate to our receipt record at any time should we want to check that out. But maybe it's just lost and we have no idea what's happening. Maybe, you know, CRA guidelines dictate that at any time, if you have a donor say they've had a lost receipt, that we actually create a replacement receipt. So we've built in a couple of things in the background to support the CRA guidelines. If we click acknowledge donation, at any time that will resend that email that the client received at the beginning, but it will not resend the receipt. So it's only for an acknowledging. If I hit the create receipt button, I'm going to get a fun little message saying opportunity has already been receipted. Consider sending replacement receipt. So our system is built to ensure that the mistake is not made of resending that same receipt because that's not what the CRA wants. So instead, to send a replacement receipt, I need to navigate to my receipt record. And on the receipt record, and this is somewhat different if you were a Fundraising Manager 1 user, this is different than it used to be. We can see our receipt record. It has a bunch of information. We can see exactly the donation it was tied to, right? We can find the file that was attached to it. So all of that information is available right here, including our donors information. Here is where we're going to navigate to create a replacement receipt. If I don't click this on, it will create the replacement receipt, but it will not email it to the client. In this case, let's say I do want to, so I'm going to email it to the donor afterwards. I'm going to process that receipt. Now it's created a fully compliant CRA replacement receipt. We can see that the receipt that it replaced was 874. This is now 875. So we can daisy chain back as far as we need to. You can infinitely create replacement receipts and you can follow down the rabbit hole of previous receipts that it replaces. And now, because I've already gotten this second email with my new receipt, when I navigate to my receipt 875, it's going to show that it replaces previously issued receipt 874. And this is what the CRA wants in terms of compliance. So it's not going to apply to our American users, but it's a good piece. I do feel like some of the rules may change in the US soon, so it's still worth knowing. So that's with regards to receipts and replacement receipts. But at no time when we go back and now navigate to my original donation, there is no mention of the previous donation receipt because this is the most current receipt. So there's no confusion or questions. We are only showing the receipt that's directly tied to the donation at this time. So 875 is our most recent receipt. Okay, so that's receipting. Is there any questions before I kind of jump into how to send consolidated receipts off of a donation? I don't have a receipt. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so just making a note. Could you also potentially email me a screenshot on that one, Mia? Okay. Okay, sorry, just making a note. Okay, so we're going to just find one of our donors that has the option for consolidated receipts. So hopefully this is one of them. Okay, so from a contact record, looking at the contact record here, And obviously we can look at all the different opportunities. Many of these are pledged for in the future. So Bob has been a very active donor, got lots and lots of donations from his, and some have been closed won and some are still coming up. Bob, though, middle of the year says to you, I really, really need my consolidated receipt. Not sure why that would happen, but if you need to, it's obviously possible. We can hit the create consolidated receipt button. This is always off the donor, or in this place, the contact record, not off of the donation records. So we can see for the 2021 tax year, Bob's already received his giving summary. And Salesforce knows that what the tax year is going to default to the year before where we are. Same receipt delivery can be by email, or you can save it to the contacts record and then send it from there. But if I go to the 2022 tax year, we have 0 one-time donations, but we have 6 recurring donation installments of $124 outstanding. So I'm going to prepare Bob's giving summary just so we can take a look at it and see how that's different. So this receipt's been created, receipt 876, donation amount total. But now when we actually look at the file for this receipt, it's going to look somewhat different. And everyone may have, it's probably already likely seen this, but it's just worth discussing. So there is a page 2, and it's outlining between the 7th and the 10th, all the donations that came through for Bob. So that's just for creating those consolidated receipts. The biggest piece is going to be making sure that you are on the contact record. And of course, we have some of our clients are using the batch receipting functionality. Can be really useful for year-end giving, but is an option. So that's batch receipting. We are going to then go in and take a look at campaigns, and this is also discussed in our more advanced training that's being held, I believe, next week or the week after. So in our advanced fundraising manager training, we go more into campaigns, benefits, and a discussion of gift in kind if people are interested as well. So campaigns in Salesforce are incredible. They are a very powerful piece of getting an understanding of how successful your fundraising efforts are. I think we have every possible campaign type in our Salesforce org. You may only see the option for fundraising at this point. We're testing out still our peer-to-peer functionality, so you may not see that. If there is a different type of record you would like to see, you have 3 different record types that you need for campaigns, please just let our team know. This is something we can easily add in for you. We just edit by default, I believe it's set up for fundraising events in general, I want to say. But anyways, let's say I'm setting up a new fundraising campaign. You can decide the new name. I think I already have Bank Breakfast fundraiser number 1. So Tasha, that's my name. So let's say the Bank Breakfast fundraiser has a bunch of different people who are heads of table, that they're the people who are kind of driving the traffic towards our event. And so we really want to see how successful each of our fundraisers are. So I've named it this, but maybe, outwardly it's still called Bank Breakfast because we want to use a name that is less specific. Benefits are something that are more heavily talked about in the advanced session, so I won't touch on that today. Whether it's receipt eligible, whether there's different ways that maybe this is going out by email, so there's a few different types that can be set up here. Whether it's planned, completed, you can change these over after the fact. Maybe you want to throw in descriptions. But more importantly, in this case, the parent campaign is the overall breakfast with the bank, let's say. So I'm going to save that. So now any donations that come through our form are going to have values that you're going to see here. If there were donations that had come through, we would be able to see our opportunity. These are our one-time donations, or how many recurring donations came through. We'd be able to see the campaign members. Maybe I want to add somebody to the campaign. Maybe Ronan Van Vlack actually already is part of this campaign, and let's say he had donated, or maybe I want to say that he responded positively to this event, so I'm going to add him in. He's somebody that fundraiser number one, Tasha, has influenced, so he's part of this campaign. If you had GAU allocations, which is general accounting units, associated to this, where the money is always going in a specific direction, and you want to note that for banking, you can add that, so each campaign can be directed towards a specific place. And this is the fun part where I know we went through that email templates piece. I specifically, I'm going to search, and I just made that breakfast with the bank. And so maybe the name doesn't really matter. I'm just going to call it breakfast with bank. And this is actually my just general donation, and the language is English. And if you have the Salesforce template ID or you needed that, I think it does, it's going to need that. Oh, sorry, it's not going to pull back from it. Going back and forth. So it's possible to go into more depth, and this allows me to go, that form, that email template that I already made is now assigned with it. So anybody who donates to Tasha's campaign is going to get that email that we created earlier. My parent campaign is breakfast at the bank. I can see that that donation that I just made through the form we just created has already been assigned to this campaign. It's already come through. And maybe the parent campaign is actually the general fund. So let's do that. General fund, just so we can take a look. And now within the general fund, we can see that there's $46,000 that have been brought in over the entire year. So that's the nice piece. And there's how many different campaign members, because it's rolling all the way upwards. And we'll be able to see all the related donations that have come through over time. So this use of the campaign hierarchy structure is very, very useful. Look at, we can see all the way down to, this is me, breakfast with the bank here. It's all under the general fund, but they all roll up to the parent campaign at the top. And this, or maybe you want to call the parent campaign 2022 fundraising, just for argument's sake. So it's nice to be able to see that breakdown of where funds come in and assign them appropriately to different donation forms. So that's just a piece of Salesforce in that relation to campaigns. Okay, so lastly in today's training, the one other piece I wanted to talk about was Donation Manager, and I know we're starting to run out of time, so apologies if there's questions, please feel free to send them along, but I will try to power through. This should be fairly straightforward for most of you. So from the home page, I'm back in here. Donation Manager is off to the side. At any time, we can configure these amounts should you need to, or maybe you use the other tab a lot because you may get some very odd donation amounts. Maybe you want to have all the possible campaigns available here because this is your internal donation form. Maybe you don't need page 2 at all. Maybe you only need your tribute option. That's just up to you, but maybe you do want to select the language preference for your donors. We can enter my information in here again, or company information where you're going to need a contact. The biggest difference with your internal donation form is going to be that you can also have cash with the deposit date, or check with the check date and deposit date, check date. We can do e-transfers. We can do direct deposit as well. So there's a lot of different functionalities, but it still allows you to report on all your donations in the exact same manner and to access that reporting functionality that's out of Salesforce. We can acknowledge only, acknowledge receipt now or acknowledge receipt later. So you can really on a individual level, likely if you got a check, you're probably not going to maybe do anything with it yet. You're going to make sure to not acknowledge or receipt it because that would be, you haven't received the money yet, it hasn't gone through. All right, and then those are kind of some of those functionalities in terms of cash or check. And there's one other thing I was wanting to point out with the donation manager. Oh, this is the other thing. Maybe you get a donation from Tasha and she donates pretty frequently. You're going to look up her record And right from her record, if any of you don't have this, please let me know, because this will be critical, and I will follow up with this. Right from her contact record, you should be able to create a new donation. So the benefit of this is going to be that you get all that functionality of the internal donation manager, where you can choose cash or check and all of those pieces. But you'll have noticed that my contact information did not show up. Sorry, I moved through that a little too fast. So instead, when I clicked new donation, it didn't ask for any of my contact information. It actually pulled the contact information directly from right here. It just pulled the address information right from my Salesforce contact. So that can be a really quick way to fill out some of your new donations that are coming in by check. It's also great, obviously, in making sure that you don't have duplicates come into play, which is always a pain in the butt. So that is something that can be very, very useful. Many of you may not have this button for new in-kind gift. That's pretty common because that's a very specific type of donation, and I don't think we have it on everyone's contact record. So instead, if you were trying to process a new gift in kind, we're actually going to go to the Opportunities tab, choose New Opportunities, and from there, if your team has already set up in-kind gifts, there'll be the option for an in-kind gift here. So some of this may not appear on your screen. Some of it may not be something your team uses, totally fine. But if there are features you're seeing here that you would like to have available in your fundraising manager, please let us know. There is some configuration involved with in-kind gifts and a bit more work because we have to set up a different type of email template to be available, but absolutely happy to do that with you. And so that kind of in-kind gift is something that I would say about half of our clients use regularly, and the other half, it's just not something that's part of their work. All right, so that's the end of most of our training. So at this point, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I will follow up with all of these resources and include this training video. And there's lots and lots of great, like I said, this document, lots of great links right to all of the different pieces of work that you're going to need to do during setup. Oh, sorry, let's see. Perfect. And so I'll send that along to everybody. Please follow up with questions if you have them after the fact. Happy to help. And the advanced training, I will send that date, and hopefully if there are, if you're looking to learn more about Salesforce reporting or campaigns or benefits or gifts in kind, Steve is the expert and he runs that session, and there's one coming up this August. So lovely, thank you all of you. And for those who had questions, I know Mia, I have something to follow up with you. Please feel free to reach out after the fact. Thank you all. Have a great day.